Hello guys, it's Sean Messenger. Today I'm doing a Bottleman discussion video. So I haven't really done Bottleman discussions before too much. I'm going to start trying to do them occasionally, kind of reflective of what I've been doing for Beyblade, where I just take a random topic and talk about it for a while. So this time I'm going to be doing a Bottleman discussion on kind of the first three Bottlemen in the DX system. Of course we have them here. Kolomaru DX is our first power type. Aquasports DX is our first speed type, and then Life Guardian DX is our first control type. So with the first Bottleman system, what they've been calling the prototype system, the first three actually held up pretty well. I think Kolomaru and Gyakurak were at least solid enough power and control types respectively. They did their job, they were still decent, I would say all the way throughout the end. Even though they were, better power types, better control types, they were still decent. Outside of their breakage issues, but that's a different topic. I'm not getting into that here. Aquasports, however, even though it was kind of the basic speed type, it ended up reigning supreme, being basically the best of the system, not only for speed types, but just in general. So, how have these three held up for the DX system? I'm not sure if Bottleman DX is actually, completely finished or not. But I think just based on kind of the fact that we just got our huge release with, Dragogina DX, and then also, we're just kind of getting remakes. There's nothing in January. I think we might be done now. So, I think it's time to take a look at these three. Were they able to hold up throughout the entirety of DX, or did they kind of fall off throughout? So, I'm going to go and just go kind of in order here of, release, I guess you could say. I guess just bot numbers, really, but since they all release at the same time. We're going to start with Kolomaru DX, the first power type. How well has this guy held up? And I do think, to a large extent, Kolomaru has held up okay as a solid power type. I think upon release, you can maybe argue that something like, 10 Satan was better, from the original one, not the DX one. However, it was just very consistent, just very solid, just a nice power type to use. You had, the wings here, which could make a decent enough grip. And then the arms you can kind of push inward onto, push in the hold parts. To, have stronger shots. Of course, because you have also, the drive strip inside here. It did its job. It was a solid power type, and these stickers, they do not stay on, man. I've had problems with these since day one. Anyway, I need to get something else for those, but just to stick them on myself. Anyway. So, Kolomaru DX, again, it was a pretty good power type for its time. I would argue either the best, it was right around 10 Satan's level, I think, but I think just more consistent, so maybe a bit better. However, throughout DX, I feel like it's just been heavily one-upped. I think something like its direct evolution kind of says that. With, Kolomaru Energy DX, it's just way, way more powerful. And I think kind of just negates power type, like most of our power types as a whole. But, you also have, 10 Satan DX, which has its boost shot. That's kind of interesting. Carpeps DX is actually pretty interesting with its double shot gimmick. And I'm just going over, the other power types, not getting into some other stuff, But I feel like its main sort of relative was Raid Brave DX. Kind of had a similar vibe, just a solid power type, except that one was, a vertical shooter. This is a, horizontal shooter, plus, while it had kind of its more interesting, dynamic of being vertical, this thing you could charge the shots a little bit more with these arms here, by pushing inward. Has the emblem charge idea. Where Raid Brave did not. So you could argue that, okay, maybe if you just want a very consistent, power type that's not too crazy, not like a Kolomaru DX, or Kolomaru Energy DX, rather, you're not fumbling around with, 10 Satan DX with a boost shot, you're not dealing with double cap stuff like Carpeps DX. You just want a solid Bottleman. I think this in Raid Brave had merits, and I think this one actually was a bit better for a while, because you could choose to push in on the arms here to get a stronger shot. And I actually think, even though it wasn't the strongest for DX, it ended up being still a solid, power type that you could kind of turn back to and rely on just for something that is consistent. Until recently with the release of Dragogina DX. Dragogena DX has a special gimmick of sorts with its wings, where you can take off the ends of them, make them into a magazine, slap it on Raid Brave DX. Even if you don't get that charge gimmick, like with this guy, you get the vertical caps, it's still very, solid, but now you have a 3-cap capacity, and now Raid Brave ended up going from just kind of a, old, reliable, whatever kind of Bottleman, you could use it for consistency's sake, to something actually pretty good, because now you have cap capacity and other power types don't have that. No, I'm not counting Red Arrow Cider. That is a different problem. We're not getting into that here. Just the base power types, I think Raid Brave now had a lot more utility because of something like that, And considering kind of Raid Brave and Kolomaru being in this weird spot, I think that one really pulls ahead, for consistent power type that now has cap capacity, which makes it its own, which really just gives it its own identity, and this guy just kind of exists, and if it wasn't for that, I'd say Kolomaru at least has a place, but I feel like, Raid Brave kind of pulled ahead in that regard with the magazine. And I think Kolomaru really has not held up because of that. I think there really isn't much merit to this guy anymore. If you want consistency, you have Raid Brave. If you want, just power, you have, Kolomaru Energy. And then, Ten Satan and Kerpeps are doing their own things. I just don't think there's much of a place anymore with Kolomaru DX, the original one. So, I think it's gotten completely one-upped at this point. Plus, at this point, you could just use its, the arms here and the rubber parts for Kolomaru Energy DX. Just, I guess this guy's completely just outclassed to that point where, just use this one for parts for that. Because, it's just been outclassed completely. So, kind of unfortunate, but also kind of makes sense. It did get an evolution, so I'm not, as upset about it. Now let's get into the next one here with Aquasports DX. This has to be one of the weirdest cases, because Aquasports in the original system was busted. It's not as busted here. The speed core, everything about this guy, I guess, is just kind of fine. Speed cores are decent enough. Trigger, sure, I guess it's, fine. I don't like the legs, though. The whole thing is, I guess you would, push upwards or something, kind of shoot at an angle if you want to, and I guess the caps go farther, but then you're losing accuracy. I don't really know what the point of this would be, to angle it upwards. I guess you get further shots. I heard something about that, and it's you can do that, but, is that really a gimmick? Not really, just kind of almost feel like a design flaw in a way with how unstable this thing is. I don't know, maybe that's just me. So it loses out on basically everything that made it good before, I would say. However, one of the main parts that did give it some use regardless was the magazine. Having a magazine of any kind was very helpful, and in the DX system, this was the only magazine for a little while, for actually about 3 months, until the Quick Loader magazine came out with CC Leon DX, and then, of course, the next month we got, the long magazine and stuff. But basically, the whole idea of this magazine is cap capacity of 3. So you can see I have a cap in here already. Just the one. Got a second one, and of course a third one. And it doesn't stay in all the way. Nope, it just kind of chills out there, and if you feel like, moving it around, maybe do this tilt shot. If you go fast enough, it might fall out like I just had a second ago. There you go. Anyway, but enough of that. So, Aquasports DX, I feel like, the magazine, still good, but it definitely was not as good anymore because of that really random nerf to not letting it, have 3 caps fit in there properly. I don't know why that was a thing. It's really stupid. But that is a thing. You can't have the 3 caps in there properly for whatever reason. I think at the start of DX, this thing still got outclassed by the original Aquasports. I'm just saying that right now. I still would have rather used that original one opposed to this thing. Even if maybe this one's better in some ways, I just feel like that one was just so just good all around with a proper capacity. This thing just kind of was there, and I don't think many people would argue that the first one was probably just better, even, directly compared to this thing. which kind of already invalidated this thing at the start. However, it did have a magazine, you know, it was in the DX system. Okay, had something going for it. But then the second we got another release like CC Leon DX, not only was that just a better stock Bottleman for a speed type, but also the quick loader magazine is just way better than this thing. I mean, sure, the base magazine only has a 2-cap capacity, but this thing, I mean, yeah, it is 3 caps, but like they don't work well together anyway. Like you get 2 caps properly in there, but then like the third cap just kind of sits out there. And it is kind of awkward. And then again, the next month I thought, okay, you get a long magazine with a 4-cap, well, 5-cap capacity, 4 extra caps. This thing just got invalidated very quickly, and even with the whole gimmick of taking other Aquasports magazines to stack on top of each other, it only gave you an additional cap capacity of 1 because of how the stupid magazine works, and it doesn't have enough space to fit 3 properly. You only got a 1 cap boost from a second magazine. Maybe if you use enough, it balances out to where you'd eventually get a second cap out of 1, but still, it's like, it's not good. This thing just was entirely invalidated by the other magazines that would eventually come out, and just the other speed types in general. This thing just really did not hold up, and is nothing like the original Aquasport, in my opinion. It just kind of... It's just like the most mediocre thing we could have gotten, if I'm being honest. And now the last one, our first control type of Bottleman DX, Lifelguardian DX. Oh boy. I think most control types from the original system kind of are better than this thing. I would much rather use Skull Pistol or Sparking Knight. Maybe it's better than Gyakroc and CC Leon, but still. I mean, if you want to count like Premium Salifier as another control type, that's definitely better than this thing. I don't know, the power on this thing is just like non-existent compared to most other Bottlemen. Even other control types, I feel like the short feet are not helping it much at all here. It just doesn't feel good. This barrel, I guess, kind of nerfs the power as well, but like at the same time, I swear Lifelguardian is just worse than some of the other ones. But again, the control hold parts are the main problem here. These hold parts are terrible. I know that you're not supposed to have tons of power on control types for, you know, accuracy's sake, but at the same time, when it's like shooting with such little force, what's the purpose of that at that point, you know? I just don't think it makes out very well in this system. You know, the hold parts just are not good enough. And banking on barrels as your main selling point as a control type, I just don't think is really worth it. It's not like a terrible, it's just very subpar, I would say. And even the argument of the barrel and, oh, you could add more barrels on, like, we didn't get another control type until August with, you know, Earth Roller DX and Aerosider DX. Also at the same time we got the Long Barrel. Literally the second we got another control type, this thing was entirely invalidated. Aerosider was a significantly better Bottleman stock. And when you factor in barrels, the Long Barrel, if you're using a barrel for the sake of accuracy, the Long Barrel is just better. This thing was just in a weird spot. It just didn't have enough to it to warrant being better than anything else. And the barrel, I just don't think is really worth much when you have other options like the long barrel, or just, I guess, one extra option, but whatever. So, it just did not hold up at all, in my opinion. So with that, that was just kind of a quick overview of these original 3 and how well they held up over time. And as you could see, no, I do not think they held up very well. At all, if I'm being honest. I think that they just kind of... They fell off. That's like the best way to put it. They definitely fell off, I would say. Were these good entry points for DX? Honestly, not really. I still don't think Aquasports was really fleshed out well enough to be a proper good speed type from the start. And they really need to get the hold parts right for Lifelguardian 1, or just control types in general, really. Even if they were locked to just having barrels, like, the whole parts could have been a bit better on control types, I think. So these two, I don't even think as introductions were very good for the types, and I think eventually, yes, we got better speed types. And control types really never became anything that great, in my opinion, but hey, Aerosider I think you can make an argument for. So hey, we had something at the very least for control types that was, like, decent. Kolomaru is the only one here that I think was actually a solid start to the line with power types, but it's definitely been outclassed over time. So yeah. None of these have really held up, I would say, and I want to make a video on that, just talking about these first three, because it has been a while since I've covered them. Wanted to go back a little bit to talk about them, and yeah, that's just basically my thoughts on these guys, and how I think they've kind of just fallen off, and why, after having them for quite a while. That is my sort of analysis, I guess you would say. That makes it sound a lot more official than it is, but yeah, those are just my thoughts on it. So yeah, that's all for this video. So yeah, anyways, thanks for watching, and bye-bye.